Hi and welcome to Tabletop Gaming. My name is Charlie and today we are talking about 10 of the best games for non-gamers. So when we say that, we're going to make a couple of caveats. Of course, we are a tabletop gaming company. That is the name of our magazine. Therefore, we are talking about games that are suitable for non-tabletop gamers. And the way we're going to do that is by talking about things like familiarity and ease of setup and things like that, and ways that non-gamers can enjoy the games with us or without us, and what those games might be. What would we recommend? This was originally in issue 58. This is one of my own 10 of the best. So if you want to comment on any of the suggestions that I've made, please feel free to, because I had great fun picking these. I could have picked another ton of them, and I'd love to hear your suggestions too. But without further ado, let's move on to number one. And that is What Next from Big Potato. Now, of course we had to include Big Potato on this list because we're looking at that sort of space between party games and gateway games where it's a little bit murky and we can't make a decision as to where it sits. And What Next is a perfect one for that. Let me explain why. So, What Next is like a choose your own adventure game, or choose your own path game, sorry, I should say. And what that means is you're going to turn over cards, you're going to have a choice. Do you want to go left? Do you want to go right? But you may have to complete an action in order to do so. You may have to have picked up an item. You may have to physically do something to do it. Now, that physical thing that you might have to do is a range of different party games. So, you might be a robot who's trying to escape so he can go on his first ever holiday. Full of, by the way, little nods and little references and little cute things inside, and a really quirky and quite funny little story that you're going to follow. However, say you need to be able to pick up an item in order to do something, but to pick it up, you have to complete a task. That task could be anything from simply winning at rock, paper, scissors, or it might be that you have to drop a token between the outstretched arms of your opponent, but they have to sit on the floor and you do it from shoulder height. It might be you have to throw a card at them, they have to catch it. It might be you throw a card at them, they have to smack it out of the air. All of these things are included within that, plus a couple of other bits where you're stacking things and doing bits and bobs. What that means is you're getting a choose your own path game, so you're beginning to entertain the idea of campaigns, you're looking at the cards themselves, you're with more components than perhaps you would be used to, but you're still playing party games as you go, and because the pacing is quick enough, it's really good to bring people into without them feeling sort of overwhelmed by the game that you've presented to them. As well as that, rules are minimal. You can teach as you go. You can literally, right, we'll turn over the first one, let's see what happens. This card means that, that card means that. That's basically all you need to do until you reach certain points, which are all explained on the cards, or a quick, very brief reference to the instructions and you're away. For number two, I've gone with MicroMacro. Now, there's a couple of reasons for this, but the main one is that we always talk about familiarity. When we're bringing new players into a game, we talk about things that are familiar to them, which is why Ticket to Ride is so often quoted as the one that people start out with, because everybody understands trains. Trains go from one place to another, and that's basically all you need to know about Ticket to Ride as well. Well, here's the thing with MicroMacro. It is basically Where's Wally Extreme mixed with kind of the detective elements of Cluedo. So we're hitting 2 here. What it does is it is a huge map that sprawls across your tabletop, and in it is so intricately detailed in this line artwork that comes through, and that tells a story. So you're going to have cases that you're going to open up, you're going to take a look at and see like who murdered this person, and you have to first of all find that person. Then you have to follow along somewhere in there. There are clues as to what happened to that person. And as you go further through the map, you might, they were here, and then they went here, and then they went here, and then, oh my goodness, there's somebody there that's murdered them. I don't know, I can't think of an example quickly enough, but you get the idea. It is this huge map that you're going to want to check out, but it gives you, that Where's Wally vibe that's trying to find stuff that's tricky to find and trying to be the first person to find it, whilst also giving you that sort of Cluedo of who done it, because you're solving those crimes as you go. It's a really good way as well, just to show off how big the hobby is, because it doesn't have to be a let's sit down and play a board game style game. It can be, hey, here's a map, let's find out what happened, who stole this bread. At number 3 is Escape the Curse of the Temple. Now, I love this game for a number of reasons, but here it is especially good because of simultaneous play. So, if you think most people's experience with board games who aren't within the hobby tend to stop after the traditional games, so Cluedo, Scrabble, and Monopoly. Now, the big issue with Monopoly is there's sort of a bit of a wait period, so as you take your turn, you have to wait for everything to happen. It gets a bit boring because there's always one person with analysis paralysis, and then you get knocked out because of all this stuff, and then you can't do anything, and it's really frustrating, and you don't work together at all. Flip that on its head. All of those complaints are sort of mostly result in escape the curse of the temple, because what you're doing is you're rolling dice. As you roll your dice, as you explore, you lay out more tiles, you create your own sort of temple that you're doing. All the while, there is a soundtrack behind you that will set off a gong and you'll have to do certain things. You have to race back to the room or you have to race out of the temple, and you must do so very quickly. Now that builds up tension. It keeps your game specifically to 10 minutes so it doesn't overload anyone. Everybody is playing at exactly the same time, and frankly, you are too busy and too stressed to worry about whether this game does this or this does that or whatever else. You're too busy rolling and chatting and shouting at your friends that you've got this and you need this and you want that, and oh my god, we have to get back, to not enjoy yourself. It is so much fun, and it's a really quick and easy one to learn as well, because all you're doing is showing people what's on the tiles, showing people what's on the dice, and then setting the timer off, and away you go. Plus, Indiana Jones vibes, and that is never a bad thing. At number 4 is Chronicles of Crime. There are a couple of these, any of them pretty much will do. So before coronavirus made QR codes popular, Chronicles of Crime were using it for their investigatory processes. So this is where a crime has happened and you're going to solve it in one way or another. Now, you will download an app, you will then scan each of the things you want to do. So it might be that you scan to say you want to interview a witness, it might be you want to scan to say you want to investigate what's hidden in this desk, and then you'll set off around the area to find out what's going on, to meet new people, to interview new people, and to try and solve the crime itself, which at the end you will then present. Why is this good for non-gamers? Well, a couple of reasons. First of all, having the app makes it feel a little bit more video game based, which is an area that many more people are familiar with, because even if you're not familiar with computer games per se, you're probably familiar with the easy phone games that you get for free, because who isn't? So with that, this links that in quite nicely. You're doing nothing new. You are scanning in the same way you would take a photograph, and that's going to give you some information very, very quickly, which you're then going to use to pass on to something else. The added bonus of that is, of course, again, it's that mystery element that appeals to so many of us, that you might have picked up from Cluedo, where you just want to solve the mystery and be the person that knows what's going on. Chronicles of Crime gives you that. At number 5 is Disney Villainous. Now, suggesting a Disney game to some poor unfortunate soul is generally going to be met with an expectation level. So Disney's quite fluffy, it's quite cartoon, it's fine, it should be a really easy game. Are you sure it's not a kid's game? And what covers that, instead of having just this like facade of Disney wonderfulness, or like cutesiness I should say specifically, because there's still wonderfulness underneath it, is that this is the villains who get the best stories anyway. They are the more fun to play regardless, and more fun to talk about regardless. Then, what belies underneath that is a really tricky little strategy game. This gets very, very competitive. You're going to be trying to change the outcome that the villains have reached. You're going to try and win this time round. Now, each of those boxes that you can get, you have the main box, which is the one that I've referred to in whichever picture side I've put it on, but there are also expansions that add in additional ones. Now, you're always going to have your favourites. If I play this with my sister-in-law, immediately she has to have Ursula. It's those sorts of things. You can pick up favourites from people. There's a huge amount of familiarity. You know already what they're trying to do, what their motivations are, why they want to do it, and that makes playing it so much easier. It also gives you a nice little twist on the narrative that you already know. So although you're familiar with it, you're not too overly familiar with it to know exactly how it must end, and it's up to you to complete the actions that are there that are a little bit tricky. You're going to be moving more. If you can get into that, you can play most games, because that gives you a really solid foundation. Number 6 is Mansions of Madness. Now, the reason this is on the list is very similar to Chronicles of Crime. It just does things a little bit differently, and I think is a really good entry-level game. So potentially we're veering more into the gateway game than we are necessarily the party game, but I think we're also veering more into the video game than we were before. So this game gives you that Cthulhu mystery that's really like intriguing and interesting. It also tells you which tiles to lay out through an app, and as you create your interactions, as you go and speak to different people, you log in the app what it is that you're doing, and that then gives you immediate feedback. It gives you more information. It tells you things that you need to learn, that you then make decisions based on, and that those then refer back to. So if you know this, you can do this. One of the biggest reasons why I like it is because it also gives new people a lesson that you don't always win, and that is okay. And that's a really big thing with Cthulhu games. They can be really difficult in the best way, because you could go insane and nobody wants that. So this gives you the first bite of that whilst also feeling quite video gamey. So you feel in comfortable territory for a newcomer to the hobby, but you may lose. Actually, you probably will lose. Number 7, I feel like I put this game on every single list I get the opportunity to do so because I love it, and I just, when I'm told, right, we're going around so-and-so's, can you bring some games? Because that's quite an understandable request of me as the board gamer, just bring some games. I will always include a game of cat and mouse. The reason being is that whether you are like at this end of the hardcore board gaming spectrum, or you're at the light fluffy or not even played at all end of the spectrum, cat and mouse is an incredible game for both. All you need to do is flick a cat paw, right? It's magnetic, it sticks to the bottom of the board, you flick it. That's all you're gonna need to do. That ball that's in your little cat paw is gonna soar, hopefully through the cat mouth that is in the center, to the other side of the board, hopefully taking out a ball that's sat in the center, either a black one that's the nose or the white ones that are the teeth. That's it. That's all you've got to do. And it is as delightfully simple as that. We have a couple of videos that refer to it. We even have a video where we're playing it. I will link that somewhere, either in the description or you'll be able to see it at the top here. It is great fun to play. It is a dexterity game. There is little to no explanation on how to play before you can get started. And my goodness, is it the most competitive thing ever? And the thing is, as you play it, you laugh because it's so mixtured with luck and skill that you can just get one lucky shot in and win the whole game. Or you can have a game that goes on and you're constantly going, no, why have you done that? I wish you hadn't done this. Why didn't I do that? All the sort of fun that spills out of it is the kind of thing that associates great fun with board games, and it means that your friends are then going to turn around to you and go, have you got any more like that? With my answer, of course, being, yeah, I do. In at number 8, we're going off the well-travelled path and into a slightly new direction, because tabletop, although we generally think probably board games straight away, which I think is understandable, tabletop refers to the whole range of games that exist within this hobby. And one of those, of course, is RPGs. Now, the one that I want to refer to specifically with this is the party RPG, and that's for a couple of reasons. First of all, it is impossibly easy to pick up and DM. The reason being is because all the DM really needs to do is make some decisions. So in terms of, I need you to roll or don't roll, that's it. But read from the book. So the book gives you the narrative passages that you need to provide to your players to set up what's happening. It's up to them to then respond, see if they pass or fail, and the information on what you do next is then in there. So if your friend turns to you and says, I want to play my first RPG, you can pull it off the shelf and get going. Then from a character's point of view, so from that person that's then playing the game, setting up a character sheet is very, very simple. It tells you what you need to do. It's like select name, select character, select all your sort of like little niggly bits that make up who you are as a role-playing character. And then your things like weaponry and such you buy with a certain allowance. That's it. That's enough to get you started. You could probably get away to begin with not needing to fill any of that in either. Then it's just a case of telling the story, mixed in with party games, because it's the party RPG. So it might be that you encounter a bush that is in the way, you are given an accented passage for the DM to read, so it sounds like it's in a different voice, and that bush tells you that you cannot pass until you have danced your way through it. Now, this is not just any dance, the GM is going to tell you a song, and you are going to try and silently dance out that song in such a way that the other person can guess what it is. It's like a musical charades, but still with no songs. That means that it's beautifully easy for both the DM and the players, and also going to be adding in those nice little party elements that make you laugh throughout. So you haven't got to sort of manufacture the fun as it is. It comes naturally as you go through and do these things. And again, if you're having fun playing something, it's the natural progression is to go, can we play it again? Can we play more? What can you recommend? But in at number 9, we're going back to board games specifically, and we're going to go with Overboss. A couple of reasons for this. First of all, it is deceptively simple. It looks like a big box, it looks intimidating. As soon as you then open it up, you then realise what you're doing is you're placing tiles on your board, and you're trying to do so in a pattern that means that you gain the most points. There's also some monsters. You'll try and pop the monsters in the right rooms for you to get the most points. Job done. I've explained the whole thing. Well, to an extent. I've explained the easy round without any extra additions to it, but it means that when you're explaining it to other people, it's really, really straightforward, whilst at the same time being beautiful to look at. It's got a pixel style artwork. I keep saying an 8-bit artwork, but it's not too far into 8-bit. It's more pixelated, with some really cool nerdy references, much like the very first boss monster that we're aware of that was such a big hit on the scene. This one, unsurprisingly, does the same. So there's a certain nostalgia drive. Like, I can pull that off the shelf with a certain group of friends and know, because they played games that were in that pixelated format previously, that they will be interested in what this has to tell us, making it quite an easy one. Now, also, once you're doing that, you start realizing how much you're strategizing, how much you're trying to make a plan out of what you're doing, how quickly you want to play again, how much you want to muddle those things up. And this sits further into our gateway game category, I would argue, rather than necessarily our party game category, but a solid start for you to get a non-gamer pulled in and hooked in and hopefully wanting more. And then finally, at number 10, I've gone off the beaten path completely and utterly. So I veered off with an RPG. I'm veering even further away from that with a solo RPG. And let me tell you why, because I think it makes sense. So the game that I have selected is Colostle. So why Colostle? Out of all of the ones I could have picked, why Colostle? As I say, to begin with, it is because it is the most recent one that has really caught my attention, and I'm in the phase of it where I just want to tell everyone about it. Why? What is it? Well, it is this impossibly huge castle, impossibly huge. Inside there are mountains, there are valleys, there are basically these whole worlds inside. And there are stone golems that sort of guard the rooms, but no one really knows where they came from. No one has the memory to match all of these rooms and experiences up with what's happening there. So as you're going through, not everyone in there is nice. You're going to have fights, you're going to have things you have to do, and you're going to be creating not only these encounters, which are sort of more prompted by your draws, but also the worlds that you are creating. You are making these worlds within your mind with some incredible prompts from the RPG itself. What it can facilitate is a really interesting world, a really interesting exploration. I would probably end up talking more about this in a separate video, but I do think for non-gamers it's a really interesting way in through almost a writing exercise rather than necessarily a here is a board game, you must play it, but a sneaky way in. Just write a journal based on what's happening here, okay? And then come back to me. Oh wait, you made a whole world? Guess what else can do that? This, and this. And that's what the sort of games for non-gamers are, ones that are less intimidating. This one is a solo adventure, you can take it away, you haven't got to do it with other people, but also ones that will draw you into more games. So in this case, things like other RPGs are a great shout too. So there you have it. That is my list of 10 of the best games for non-gamers that I would recommend and that I have recommended. These are tried and true as much as possible. Colossle's a little bit too new, but are good ones that I would recommend for your non-gamers. However, as always, I would love to hear in the comments which ones you would, because I had a huge list that I had to cut down, so I want to know what yours are, whether they match up the ones that I would put on the list, whether I've thought of them or not. I want to hear from you, so pop those below. As always, if you enjoyed this video, please hit like and subscribe. Thank you so much, and visit us at tabletopgaming.co.uk for more. So if you want to see more from us, head to that website and I will pop links in the description too, so you can see the original article in the original magazine, which is great fun. And with that, thank you so much for watching and have a great day.